Right, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Good. Okie doke. Right. So we've got quite a lot of variations to get through.
Crikey.
I'm just gonna go through them kind of fairly quickly because I don't want it to take, absolutely ages. I'm gonna try and do it in like a half hour. I'm gonna say all of the major things that I think that we need to understand about direction of play, that kind of thing. But I'm not gonna, boil the ocean and kind of say, well, instead of this move, this is a rare continuation, and you might need to think about this, that, and the other because, I think at this stage, now that we've got a few Joseki under our belts, it's about quantity. And then when you've been introduced to a whole bunch of them, then we can start to refine, like what happens if on move 12 this thing happens instead of that thing. A lot of these will be completely new, and a lot of these are kind of interchangeable, especially with pincers. So you'll see them whether it's a 2-space pincer or a 3-space or a high pincer or a low pincer. And I've tried to kind of include the variations that are cross-purpose that will also work irrespective of how wide or how narrow the pincer is. Okay, so I'm going to try and do it in some kind of semblance of order as well. We're going to start with the 3-4 pincers. How many of you play 3-4, by the way, on the opening moves, or do you tend to stick to these star point stones?
I tend to play a lot of 3-4s.
Yeah, so 3-4s are kind of oriented towards, it's biased, right? It has a directional bias. Usually, if black starts here, black wants to develop the right side of the board by way of enclosing the corner with what's called a shimari, or a knight's move enclosure.
Ashley, is it possible to put coordinates up?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, of course it is. View, show coordinates, default. There we go.
Fab, thanks.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to start with a 1-space high pincer. Anybody seen this move before?
No.
It's kind of a weird looking move, right?
It is.
Yeah, it's very kind of claustrophobic. It kind of attacks the white stone in the strongest possible way. Against this, which you don't see that often, to be fair, but I recommend that we just go into the 3-3 point and keep life nice and simple. The aim of this move is to settle the whites group as quickly as we can. This is the only move really for black, the only move that kind of makes sense. Black wants its fair share of the corner too. And then we make a tiger. This is a nice shape move, and it also gets us out into the center of the board. Black here has 2 options. If black is interested in the right side, black will play here and extend down to the right. There may be, let's say, a black stone here, for instance. That would work nicely. This is a nice shape move for white to, again, encroach a bit of the corner, and also to try and stabilize the group. I'll kind of explain more about how white is stronger than what white looks. Because white kind of looks a little bit hemmed in at the moment, but there's a lot of moves that white has at its disposal to make the group nice and safe. And again, black is focused on the right side. And at some point, this is the Joseki actually over. So at this point, what I might do actually is, if the Joseki is done, I might just do that so that you can kind of see it flagged on the variation. Yeah. Later on, white will do well if white gets this move in. This move is quite big to slide underneath the black stone, because this black stone, now is kind of without a base. And this relationship between this and this is not really existing, right? There's not really much of a relationship between these 2 stones. That's quite big for white.
Can I just point out, when you say that the Joseki is over, and that's because the 2 points that Ashley's talked about, the N18 point and actually the S18 point, are Mii, and we've talked about Mii before, when it's one way or the other, so that if black comes in from the N side, then white can go into the corner and threaten the black stone there and make 2 eyes in the corner. And if black descends to S18, white can come out the other side. And we we say a Joseki's over when it's reached an equilibrium position. Does that make sense? Everyone get that idea?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, Ashley.
No, to be honest.
It's what?
So we can probably explore that. We can explore that idea of a Joseki being over when there's kind of a balance and there's nothing that critical that's going on.
Sorry, Simon. Did you have a comment there that I missed?
I wasn't clear on the concept of the Joseki being over based on the equilibrium, but Ashley's going to cover it.
That's fine.
Later
Okay,
anyway.
I'll shut up. Okay.
Cool. Okay, so what Robin was saying was that basically there's this move for white, but there's also this move for white as well. And because if black takes one, then white can take the other, it's not critical for white to play either of them right now. Because it's not critical for white to play, then the position is less hot, let's say, than the other areas of the board. So play will naturally move to those other areas, and then when we have a changing of circumstances, or when black decides to take one of those points, then the play will focus back on this area again. Right. Actually, one of those areas, if white plays away now, black might decide to go for this move. This is quite an attacking move. In this case, white can play here. This is Sente because white's aiming to capture this black stone by playing here. So black will connect their stones, and then white can play this one, and then this one. And actually, white is alive directly in the corner in this situation because black will need to save their one stone here. Going back a few moves, if black plays this one, white also has this move, and this creates an eye here, and white's also threatening to make an eye over here as well. If black then plays away, then white also has just the option of going out into the center directly. So there's actually kind of this one, there's this one, there's this one. So white is actually a lot better than what white looks because of the weakness of the black shape around here. And also this tiger by white is a nice move as well. Mm-hmm. In general, any 3/3 invasions in a pincer, you are going to be okay, even if it looks like you're a little bit squeezed in, because the shape points are quite nice for you. The only other move that black would want to consider, this is when black isn't strong on the right side and wants to try and take the corner directly, is to Atari against this stone. So this is different than black just pulling back on the right side. So Atari against this stone. It would be a mistake for white to connect here because then we have an empty triangle. And white's got no eyes. This stone is really effective. And white's a bit sad. Sad times. So instead, what white needs to do is Atari back against this stone. When black takes, white can Atari again. And then black fills in, and then white makes a shape here. Actually, this is very nice for white when black has this stone. The one space high pincer, you don't really see this variation. The reason why you don't see the variation is that when black hanes underneath and then white extends, this stone is really awkwardly placed. You want this stone to either be here or here, so that when black pushes, black can link up. Yeah. We talked about this shape before. Actually, the relationship between these two stones is called a large diagonal move, or what's called an elephant's eye, and white's just plonked a stone directly in the middle and poked out the eye, basically. So in this particular pincer variation, this would be good for white. Yeah. Let me just go back through that once more. So we've got two options. Either if black is strong on the right side, black can pull back, white takes the corner, and then white can reserve this one for later, but in general, players will tend to play away in this Joseki when we reach this stage. The other one is for black to Atari against here. It's a mistake for white to play here, so don't do that. Instead, Atari back, take, Atari again, black fills in, and black is now alive in the corner. And then white protects the cutting point. And then black...
Can you put numbers on the stones, Ash? Because we can see the sequence. Can you do that?
I can, but the only thing is that it tends to look a little bit busy. If I show move
I don't know.
numbers,
What do people think?
you kind of get this kind of thing going on, you know. But the thing is that realistically, you're not going to be able to count from 1 to 14 when I'm kind of going through at this pace.
Phil, what
Right.
we're doing, Phil, is I'm recording this section of the lesson, and so I'll post this section of the lesson onto YouTube.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where you're not going to be able to remember all these variations at once. But like I said, I think that's kind of variety at this stage is quite important, just so that you can get introduced to many different kinds of Joseki. And then if you want to watch back the video later and get some kind of more info out of it, then you know that's absolutely fine. I can also share the SDF file as well, so that if you want to explore the variations and put some of your own in, then we can do that too.
Okay.
But I'll leave them off. Yeah, I'll leave them off for now if that's okay, Phil. Just because, like I say, it does get a little bit busy, especially when we have some of the longer variations. Okay, so that was the first two. This Joseki is over around about here. How do I do this again? Oh yeah, that. So that's Joseki number 1 and number 2. Okay, so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Next one.
Yeah.
We move on to the one space low pincer. You should have seen this before, but you might think that the pincer's only played when black is on the star point here, so everything is kind of moved over by 1. But this is really common as well as a 3-4 pincer. So in this case, what I recommend is to lean against this black stone. Now, when we say lean, what we mean is that we try and induce black to continue on down the right side. In general, with a lot of these pincers, what you'll tend to find is that white's aim is to try and move out with this stone. White will move out with this stone and create some kind of wall down here, and then the continuing battle will be the trade-off between the territory that black accumulates on the right-hand side and the influence that white gets from the wall later in the game. It can also make this stone look rather weak, and if white has a stone in this corner, then this can work really nicely with white's wall as well. So there's a direction thing to think about, but in general, a lot of the variations that I've picked is kind of this exchange for black territory versus white influence, especially if white has a good direction of play with a white position over here. Cool. This continues, so white extends and black makes some territory on the right side. In this case, the Joseki can go in one of 2 different ways, and a few others that I haven't included because of time. White can attack this 1 black stone directly by playing a pincer, now that white's got the sufficient strength in order to do so. And in this case, black will extend, and then, or rather jump, and then the continuing battle will be, well, who's got the balance of power here? White tries to shore up some more power by continuing to extend along the right side. Black's quite happy, and black says, well, you know, that's fair enough, but I'm just going to take all the points. And here, yeah, so you can see that black has quite a lot of territory, but white's getting something really, really big. And the question is, what's going to happen with these 2 stones? And also the question, like I said, is what's happening in this corner as well. So that is Joseki number 3. I'll just go back so we can see that again. Where's my little flag? There we go. Going all the way back here. So 1 space low pincer recommendation is to press and induce black to continue down the right side. We just keep putting our stones there to make a nice wall, and then when we attack the 1 black stone, we let black jump once and then continue down the right side to get even more strength. There are a couple of variations to this, and it does get a little bit complicated because we're looking to exploit in some variations the shortage of liberty with these 2 stones. I've got a couple of variations to show you with that as well. One of them is, instead of extending here, black may decide to play this Tetsuji. Anybody know what the name of this Tetsuji is?
No idea.
No idea.
No, it's called the double hane.
Oh yeah.
This is the first one, and this is the second one, right? You'll notice that, well, there's a couple of features about double hanes. First is that it leaves a lot of cutting points behind, but black gets a higher position versus if black just extends. So actually, this is used often to extend or enlarge a moyo. So black might go for this one when black is strong and has like a shimari shape at the bottom. That could be one idea for black. So if black decides to go this way instead of playing the more usual extend down the right side, then we have an opportunity to play a different variation that's a bit more nuanced, let's say. If we poke in, then obviously black needs to protect, otherwise the corner just goes to white. And then white can cut this way directly. Now, notice that these two stones are gradually getting short of liberties, and also black needs to protect this one stone. So there's a pretty cool move that's coming up. This is the cool move. This is called a nose Tetsuji. This is another Tetsuji. The idea behind this is that these stones now have two liberties, and black needs to be really careful about what black plays next. The move that black needs to play is just to capture this one stone directly. The reason being is that black doesn't really want to get squeezed this way, because black just ends up getting captured, right? So the idea is to force black to play this way, and then we can just cut here and then extend. So this is the second one. Again, we've seen an exchange here. Black has points on the right side and has captured one stone, but we have a really nice influence going, shining towards the left side of the board. These two stones are pretty weak, and especially if we've got a position on the top left corner, then this extension can act as a nice, in a nice place. Good, cool. I know that I'm going at a fast pace. I'm really sorry, but there are like a heck of a lot of extension Joseki and Pincer Joseki. But like I say, rewatch the video when it's posted, and you'll get probably twice as much from the first viewing to the second viewing. Okay, so so I'm going to mark this one. Yeah, so cut, and then this one, and then cut and extend. Okay, so this is Joseki number 1, 2, 3, 4. What's this one? Oh, this was just my variation. Yeah, we can get rid of that. Okay, so going back this way, so we mentioned about the 3-3. Instead of pincering the one black stone, white can enter the 3-3 directly. This is actually very common to see as well in not only in pincer variations, but also in Joseki in general. If black pushes once and then jumps, often you'll see white enter the 3-3 because we can exploit the fact that these two black stones will end up in a slight shortage of liberty. So we can see an example of that now. Black goes in, and then goes this way and then cuts. And then we can cut here because these stones are now in a shortage of liberty again. And then we ladder this one stone. So in this case, black has the corner, which is weird because we're the ones that entered the 3-3, right? But we get the outside. This is dependent on a ladder. This ladder is hugely important. If you do not have a stone around here, you cannot play this variation. And also, the other thing that I was going to mention is you may notice that black can capture this one stone by playing this way. This is nothing to worry about. This one stone is a garbage stone anyway because it's really low on the board and doesn't really affect the position. So just let black take and just go like this. Yeah, it's no problem at all. So let's see that one once more. I know that these are pretty complicated. Unfortunately, they do get a lot simpler when we start to look at pincers that are less kind of close together, because when you've got this kind of close contact fighting, one or two moves that are out of place and the situation can change very quickly. So these Josekis, weirdly enough, are generally quite old, even though they're quite violent, because the moves have been worked out quite a long time in advance. So you can enter the 3/3 instead of pincering the 1 stone. Black will push up and then capture the 1 stone, but that's fine because we can push in and exploit the shortage of liberty, and then ladder this 1 stone, and we get the outside. All right. Again, because we get the outside here, it's quite useful if white has a position over here, or even if white can have something like this going on, then this is perfect. Okay.
Are you guys? I'm just checking understanding here. Are you guys following these sequences, or you will be able to with the video? Yes, you are. Good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be good to review them after class in my own time. But
yeah, absolutely.
The speed walkthrough is helpful.
That's fine.
Yeah. I do think at this stage that quantity is quite good, just to see all the different kind of nuances. And the thing is as well that even though the Joseki is very different to each other, you'll have like consistent themes that crop up all of the time. 3/3 invasions, 2 stones, little shortage of liberty problems here, there, and everywhere. Ladders are a big thing in Joseki as well. So so it's really, really common to see things like repeating over and over again. Okay, so that's one ticked off for the high pincer. We've ticked off the low pincer. How are we doing for time? We've got about a quarter of an hour left. Christ, okay, let's go. 2 space high pincer. Now, this one is probably one of the most popular pincers that you will see. It was hugely popular back in the 1970s and 80s. In fact, it wasn't that unusual to see this 2-space high pincer played in all 4 corners of the board before players decided, okay, well, which one do I want to touch first? Do you know what I mean? Like it's a mirror image all over the place. I'll post a game actually that was in the NHK Cup between Sakata Ayo and another player who I forget the name of, but yeah, they played 2-space pincer Joseki in every single corner. Mirror image that way and that way. Cool. Against this, I recommend that you jump out. This 2-space jump is not possible in pincers that are closer together because black can cut through the shape. Now, black then protects the right side so that black doesn't get surrounded. Playing elsewhere would not be good because this is really powerful as white. So yeah, black protects the right side. And then white can pincer the 1 stone. Pincers the 1 stone exactly like we saw in the other Josekis. Again, it's good if white has a position around here somewhere. And in this case, black has 2 options that you'll see fairly common. Either just jump 1 space like this, or black can also play the knight's move here. If black plays the knight's move, then I recommend that you jump into the 3/3. The reason being is that the objective behind this move is to cut apart the 2 white stones, and that would not be good. So the fact that this stone is here is different from this stone being here. So if you see the knight's move, then you know that black is going to try and cut you apart. So just enter the 3/3, and then you can make that shape that we discussed in the other Joseki. Something like this. Yeah. So nice and simple. I'm just going to mark this one because this is another Joseki that is finished. Like so. What we've got now: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. In the case of the jump, this is kind of the bread and butter, I would say, of pincer Josekis in general. You'll see this kind of theme happen a lot. So if there's one Joseki that you remember from this whole thing, then it will be this one for sure. In this case, white has a couple of different options. Either you'll see this press happen quite often. Like the other one that we saw, white's trying to build a wall to attack the black stones. And in combination with this stone, and if white has a stone over here, then that's good for white. If this stone is a black stone in the top left-hand corner, then, well, it's still okay, but it's preferable that white might want to choose a different variation. So again, we see the same kind of thing happening. Black jumps, and then white can either just play here directly to attack these 2 stones. If white is worried about the cutting points and the shape weaknesses around here, then white can also play this move to induce black to protect here, just to make their stones a little bit safer. Okay, next. Let's see, we'll mark this one as well. Going all the way back here. So when white presses on the right side, black also has the option, instead of following down, to push and cut as well. This probably is the most complicated variation that we're going to see today. So again, not something that I would suggest to memorize now, but yeah, you might see it. There's actually a Tasuji here to play as well, and that is this move, which is an attachment Tasuji. You'll notice that this shape is rather weak. We've seen this before, the elephant's eye. But the idea is that white says, well, if black pokes through the elephant's eye, then white gets to play here and try to connect this shape. If black plays this one, then white can push back up and then connect everything together. So it's kind of this idea of miai again. So we'll see both of those as well. So in this case, we've seen again this idea of black having the right side and then white having a wall here and attacking these 2 stones directly. Alternatively, if black pushes through here, white can connect the 2 stones together. And this is now a trade. White's taken the right side, and then black has taken the top corner. This is even. The book says that this is even, but I'm not entirely convinced about that. I would prefer to be black in this scenario. I think this corner is pretty big.
Yeah,
but,
also depends what's happening on the top left corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it depends what's happening down here as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think I was, as a bit of an aside, I was looking at some AI games and I was remembering how computers don't like to play Pincer Joseki. And there's this idea of what I like to call kind of, this idea of corner inertia. So for me, if you're going to play, the normal 4-4 Joseki that we've studied before, the Joseki that aren't pincers, basically, you'll tend to find that the position is a lot more, well, not necessarily boring, but the position's a lot more settled than what is the case with a pincer. And I think that computers enjoy that because they can trim down their tree of variations a lot more efficiently. And in the case of pincers, the positions are quite loose. There's all these kinds of wishy-washy, influence versus, bits and bobs, and it depends what's happening over here and over here as to what you choose. Yeah, so I think that if you want to confuse your opponent and probably confuse yourself in the process, then choose the Pincer Joseki because they're quite fun. I might start doing them a lot more now that I've spent a while reviewing them again.
Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I was going to say that's been exactly my experience, is confusing myself and or my opponent, and it's been sometimes it goes great for me, other times,
Yeah, and ultimately the game's about having fun, and if we play the same Joseki all the time, then that's not that fun. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let me mark this one. How are we doing for time? We're fine.
Well, it's 1:45. We could probably do with winding up this part of the session at 5:45, something like that, so we can get the game going.
Yeah, we're halfway through. We'll get there. He says with confidence. Okay, right, where are we up to? This one and this one. Yeah, that's complicated. I'll leave that. Now then. Okay, so what have we covered? Yeah, we've covered this leaning move here. Again, black can either push and cut, which is the annoying one that gets complicated, or black can follow the right-hand side, and then we can exchange this one and then attack. Cool. What else is there? Yeah, so instead of playing this one, instead of playing this one, white can just attack the 2 directly. And then play here. Kind of looks a bit weird. It kind of looks like all of the stones are trying to run towards the bottom of the board, but it's quite logical, right? We've seen black protect the right side, white pincer the one black stone, black escapes the pincer, white continues the attack, and then white escapes. So it's all very logical and continues quite naturally. These kinds of Joseki, the 2-space jumps, they can be played irrespective of where this stone is. As long as the stone is here, 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 or here, then these are absolutely fine. And the variations don't really differ all that much. If you've got a narrow pincer, like we discussed at the start of the session, then consider jumping into the 3-3. It's just less complicated, and you don't run the risk of black trying to separate this. Or like we said, you can play this leading move instead. Cool. 2-space high Joseki is done. Now we'll move on to some of the looser Josekis. If white does not have a position over here, what you might want to do is play a counter pincer. These are always quite fun. Again, it doesn't really matter where this stone is. It could be here, 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 here. That's all absolutely fine. Doesn't really change the outcome. When you play a counter pincer, you are trying to forget about what's happening over here, but you want to focus on what's happening down here. Yeah. So if this is a white corner, if there's a white Shimari, for instance, then these 2 extension stones work very nicely. If this is not a white corner, then the outcome of this Joseki is a little bit favorable to black, just because black gets quite a large corner. So that is this one, Joseki number 8, I think. Yeah, so counter pincer, black attaches on top, and then we just play on the right side, and then black swallows this 1 stone and takes the corner. Mm-hmm. Easy peasy. Instead of playing on the right side, white can also try and fight in the corner. And there are a few different ways that this can go. In general, we have seen this before, where there's an exchange that's going on between the territory in the corner and what's happening on the top. Doesn't particularly matter what's over in this corner, because obviously white kind of counter-pincered, knowing that white wasn't too concerned about what was going on over here. So that's 1 counter pincer. You've also got this wedge move as well that white can try. This is, again, depending on the ladder. I quite like this variation because it catches a lot of people by surprise. If black plays down here, then this is the ladder. We've seen ladder shapes before, and this black stone is caught in the ladder, so you need the white stone over here. Otherwise, this does not work. Yep. Black takes the corner, but white has a really nice outside position, and this stone looks a little bit iffy. Especially if white's got these corners, then that is very nice indeed. If black does not protect the corner and decides to swallow up this 1 white stone, then this exchange is, again, preferable to white because the corner is quite big, especially if white has something down here. Let's mark a few here. This one and this one and this one. Did I have any other counter pincers? Oh yeah, I did actually. So with this wedge, if black is not going to play here because black already knows that the ladder is favourable to white. So instead what you'll tend to see is black will play on top instead. And then white will simply play this move. Black can't cut off this position because white can link up. And this doesn't work because this is an Atari, right? So white is now out into the center or the side of the board. And again, we have seen some kind of exchange take place. Black is now interested in what's going on down here. And white is interested in what's going on down here. Okay, so fair share. Interestingly enough, this is not the most obvious move, I guess, for black to play. But the idea behind this is that black can play here later on. Normally, the shape move might be to play like this. But in this case, black needs to kind of do many things at once. Black needs to protect this cutting point, and black also needs at some point to be able to play down here. And this also makes a nice tiger's mouth here, right? And this cutting point doesn't work for white. So that's the reason behind black playing this one instead of something else. Also, if white pushes in, if white pushes in, how do I change the players? Like this, then yeah, this is absolutely fine. So that's the reasoning for that move. I think that was it on the counter pincers. Where were we? We were here, right? That's the Joseki. Oh, it must be nearly spring. I can hear an ice cream van outside. Right. I might leave you and just get a Magnum and then come back. Okay, so that's low pincers all covered, and we're going to do high pincers and 4/4 pincers in 5 minutes, apparently. One space low. We've seen this before, so we can.
I was going to say, do you want to do them in 5 minutes, or do you want to leave it?
No. I'll do them in 5 minutes. Okay. It's fine. Yeah, well, we've seen this one before anyway. So there's two options here. This is one of them. Ooh. But we've also seen this move where Robin explained us last week. So white can wedge in here and then go down. Black Ataris and then captures the 2 stones on the top. And then we have this kind of thing. And again, we have an exchange. This is a white wall. And this is black territory on the top, and these 2 white stones are captured. So hopefully you remember this one from last month. To be honest, this is still a little bit iffy for me. For whatever reason, unlike Robin saying it flows very naturally, I have extraordinarily issues getting it into my head. But there you go. And then this is the alternative when instead of Atarying from the top, black Ataris from the underneath, and then this is quite similar, but in this case, it's again the idea of white's wall versus black's territory. This is the only other one really that you will see in common use when you play high. Sometimes the 3-space low pincer you will see, but to be honest, the vast majority of the time, if black is going to play a pincer against a high white stone, it will either be here or be here. Against this one, I recommend that you just play a 2-space jump like we've seen before. This is quite simple. Again, black plays here so that black protects the corner and the right side, and then we can pincer this 1 stone. Simple as. And the nice thing really about this one is that this is a Joseki. It's fine to play, it's no problem, but it's so under-researched that people don't really understand what's going on with this one anyway, right? So it's nice that you're going to be in the same boat as all of your opponents, because no one's going to know what's going on. And sometimes that's the best kind of go, where no one knows what's happening on the board. Cool.
Does everyone, I mean, what's important, I think that one of the takeaways for me of that one is actually that relationship. When the 2-space high, the M16 stone is the pincer, because it's 2 spaces away from the P16 stone, you can do a double jump out from P16 to P13. And that relationship is critical. If that black stone is on M16, that can't be done. You cannot do the 2-space pincer, because black can either attach it under or attach on top and actually separate the stones. Does that all make sense to people?
Yeah.
That 2-space jump, the speed of that 2-space jump is predicated by the distance of the black stone from the white ones. And that's a really important idea.
That's a beautiful way of describing it.
It's really important way important principle to grasp, because often we talk about fast and slow moves, and when we're moving fast, we have to be careful that we don't get left behind. We don't leave a cutting point behind us.
Okay, so star points. We've seen this one before. This is one of the first that we get to grips with. We've also seen this one before, where if black has a position down here, then this one is perfectly fine as well. I wanted to just cover a couple of other ones that you might see with certain counter pincers. In this case, instead of diving into the corner, white might decide to switch things up a little bit and play a counter pincer on the right side of the board. In this case, black will lean on this one, and then there's a couple of different ways that this can go. If white wants to go into the 3-3 because white might be interested in the corner, then that's absolutely fine, especially if black doesn't have a position over here, then this is absolutely fine for white to play. Alternatively, white can attach on this stone here, and then draw back and then make a position here. So this is the variation for white to play if white does have something down here. But again, if black has something over here, then that's absolutely fine for black to play as well. What do we have? This one? Oh yeah, so do we have time for that? No, probably not. Okay. You can have a look at this variation when you get the SGF file. Basically, in a lot of these counter pincers, there's a cutting point that remains here. But in the majority of cases, it's not something that black needs to worry about, because black can live in the corner, exploit the fact that there's this cut happening here, and then live in the corner. This is something that used to absolutely terrify me before I realized that black could just live in the corner directly. So let's just recap real quick on the ones that we have seen. This is the first one, where this is a one space high pincer, where white attaches at the 3-3. We saw this one where instead of backing off on the right side, black decided to Atari, and then we counter Atari, black gets the corner and we get the outside. We saw this one space low pincer, where white plays a pressing move, induces black to go down the right side of the board, and then we can make an attack against the two black stones. We saw this one where white attaches at the 3-3 earlier and then exploits the shortage of liberty against these two black stones, moving my mouse as fast as I can, against these two black stones. Then we saw this one, which is nice and simple. This is when there is a knight's move played by black instead of a jump, in which case we need to play at the 3-3, because otherwise our two-space jump will be in trouble. Notice, again, like Robin said, it's this distance that causes issues for us, as opposed to this distance, right? So there's a big difference between this stone being here and this stone being here. That's why the variations have to change. Then we saw this one where we have a pressing move, and then we make this move to attack these two stones. And again, for most of the long pincers, all of these are interchangeable and they don't really change too much. We saw this complicated stuff when black decides to push up and cut. This, we looked at a few counter pincers, which again, you might want to play if white has strength on the right side instead of on the top side. We had a look at this ladder variation as well. We had a look at the ones that Robin covered in the last session, and then we had a look at a few star point ones, which I haven't even had time to put my flags on. So, you know, who knows what the Joseki is, but there you go. Anyway, I know that was absolutely insane, but what I really wanted to do is to cover as many as possible, just to get the feel for what the general aims are, because at this stage I really do think that the more that you see and the more that you experiment with, it's more about general principles in a lot of cases with pincers, as opposed to, you know, the specific move orders. For instance, where's your strength, where are you strong and weak, which bits do you want to attack, do you want to exchange territory for walls, or do you want to attach it a 3-3 and get a safe position in the corner? So there you go.
Great, thanks Ashley. Any questions? Any comments?
No, that was fantastic.
Do all of these Josekis end in like that equality that you were talking, you know, that you said for black and white, you know, Is that like the general outcome for most of them?
Yeah, that's a really good question actually, because what we didn't cover at all in any of these variations is what happens if a player just decides to play away. For instance, in most of these, white can play this move, right? And you could argue, well, how is this even a Joseki if white can just play away at any point? That is true, but in most of these variations, I would say that for now, play them through as much as possible to their completion, because in order to understand when you can leave it, you first have to understand why it exists in the first place as a Joseki, and you have to understand not only the moves that you play, but also the alternatives that are available to the opponent and why they could be right or wrong. So for now, I would say the variations mostly have to be played out to completion, but even if they don't have to be played out to completion, play them out anyway, and then when you get more experience, you can start to understand when to leave them if they are able to be left earlier. So.
Can I add a comment to that as well, Phil? That is actually what I think your question was great, because it's actually almost the definition of a Joseki. A sequence in the corner or onside is called a Joseki if the outcome is roughly equal for both players. And if it's not roughly equal, then it's no longer considered a Joseki. It's considered an advantageous sequence for one player and the other. But that involves both players kind of developing their understanding of their Joseki and playing it out. So a Joseki, by definition, comes out with not an identical result, but an even result. One player gets the corner, the other one gets the influence. The corner's divided between the two players equally. One gets the corner, but the other player gets the sides. These are all outcomes that, when you look at it, and this is historically as well, going back in the 19th, 18th, 17th, 16th centuries ago, is actually Josekis were developed historically, and new Josekis are constantly being developed today, and particularly since the evolution of AI and the arrival of AI in the game, new Josekis are being developed all of the time. So this is an ongoing live part of the game that's happening right now. And so we look at some of these historical Josekis, but there are also new variations emerging all the time, because as we all know, Go is infinite.
And sometimes it takes...
Robin, for playing an AI Joseki.
What?
You shouted at me for playing an AI Joseki.
Did I? I'm sure I...
never to play it ever again.
I'm sure I did.
The thing is that it takes books like 30 years to update their advice, and we can only go on what the 9-dan professional players say, and if they say what they say is incorrect, then yeah, it's fair enough. Like, the computers have said, oi, Mr. 9-dan, what you said was a 15Q mistake. Actually, this is a 9-dan professional move. In fact, it's a 10-dan professional move, because you haven't even thought about it. You evaluated it incorrectly for the last 1,000 years. So that's absolutely fine. They will change their evaluation, but it will take some time for the advice to update.
Okay, let's leave it at that for now.
It'll take some time for the 9-dan's egos to accept it.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, that's true as well. Yeah, but I think that a lot of them have been quite humbled since AI came along, and it has really taught them that they don't have to rely on dogma as much as they were doing. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for now, because we'll move on to the second part of the session. So I'm just going to stop the recorder on that. So I've got a record of that part of the session. Thanks, Ash. That was great.